Thank you. Thank you for that, Nikhil. Really a huge round of applause for you. Thank you for doing that for us. And welcome everybody to this first ever virtual panel called There's No Playbook for This. The words normally one uses to greet the audience sets the mood, in my view. So I've decided, rather than having an official welcome, to say, my dear friends and colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you are tuning in from. And I hope all of you are staying well, staying at home, and staying safe with your loved ones. Getting involved in an event requires time and money. In this case, there's no money involved, so you are welcome. But more importantly, it demonstrates the effort, and we appreciate you making the investment of your time to share with us and with our esteemed panel. I've been at many events, and it won't be far-fetched to say that it's unlikely that the audience forgets the name of the session when the welcome speech starts. So once again, there is no playbook for this, or the scenario that we are working under, the times that we are dealing with. So what we are launching today is a global launch of this series. There's no playbook for this. Launching today with, as I said, the esteemed panel. But this is the first of many more to come as part of a global effort. And I'm personally very honored and humbled to host this on behalf of, for the industry and on behalf of the industry. And along with a very esteemed panel of speakers who have taken their time to be with us. And I would also like to thank our sponsors, our partners who have jumped on this initiative at Colony to be with us during this session. There is a lot of social media that goes around. We are living in the digital world. There's a lot of virtual world that we are living with. So there's a lot of consumption of this media that has happened. So there's a lot of handles that you can follow us. We are streaming live for the people who've not been able to register on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All those handles are available for us. And as I said, thank you to our partners.
AdColony is the highest quality mobile advertising and marketing platform. With global offices across 25 countries, AdColony works with 90% of the largest Fortune 500 companies. AdColony's partnerships with third-party verification companies, Nielsen, Moat, IAS, and Double Verify, guarantee your campaigns are brand safe, viewable, audible, and fully on screen. Certified by TAG, Coalition for Better Ads, as well as the IAB, AdColony delivers powerful results you can trust. Ads people like, outcomes you love.
Thank you once again. So with that, and without further ado, I want to introduce to you the panel, our esteemed panel. Once again, at the beginning, I would like to thank all of you, all of them. They jumped on this as an initiative, as a thought that I shared with them only about a week back. A very small mail that I wrote to them saying that there's an idea that I have and I would like to start with you guys, and all four of them immediately said yes to support this. They all are existing, engaging members with us. They all participate with me personally at the MMA Mobile Marketing Association and serve at the various boards. So without any specific order, first and foremost, let me introduce Vishnu. Vishnu, if you could raise your hand. Vishnu just celebrated 25 years at Havas, a rarity these days in an industry, even more so in an ad world, I would say. Having done a lot of various roles along the span of his stint there, he now leads the entire business group across India, Southeast Asia, and North Asia. He is also the head of Vivendi Committee for India, Southeast Asia, and manages the operating brands of Universal McCann, Canal, Dailymotion, Gameloft, and Havas. So welcome, Vishnu. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate that. With that, let me move on to Dan Neri. Dan is a vice president of Facebook for Asia Pacific and is based in Singapore. He has been with Facebook for the last 7 years. He's a technology veteran, having run the region for both eBay and Skype in the past, and is born in US. but has been in Asia for 25 years. 20 seems to be the theme. 25 years in Havas, 25 years in Singapore. And he began his career in Kellogg's cereal company. Outside of his day job, Dan is actually a mentor in the startup community and is limited partner in several venture capital funds. Welcome, Dan. Thank you for taking the time. Then let's move on to Ricky. Ricky, if you could raise your hand. Ricky has vast experience across many brands and has been a pioneer in many aspects of working through local brands competing with global leaders. Very well respected in his business and is a market leader in the region. He has managed 21 brands, I'm told, across 5 different categories during his stint, and is now the CMO of Mayora and the global head of Mayora Group, which is in the chocolate, instant food, biscuit, candy, and wafer industry. So pretty big catalog. And let his boyish looks not deceive you. He's a very well read and very respected person. He was also the marketeer of the year few years back globally, right, Pariki? And then last but not the least, saving the best for the last, I would say, Rahul Velde, close personal friend. And I thought when I started this sentence, introductions, starting with Vishnu and saying 25 years in a company seemed big. Any guesses how long Rahul has been with his company? Many people can send on chat mode if they want to. This is a quiz. I'm not going to name it right now. People can send it on the chat. And while I introduce him, the rest of him, he has served as the chair. You can actually give the answer on the chat, attendees. He served as the chair of MMA in the past in Asia Pacific when he was based in Singapore as the head of media for half of the world for Unilever when he was running that. And having spent that long, he was obviously exposed to a very diverse culture and challenging assignments in Asia Pacific. He's now based in the global headquarters in Unilever, leading digital transformation for Unilever globally, covering digital strategy, execution, infrastructure, and tools, and making Unilever digital presence more compelling and impactful. He's also the visiting faculty and guest speaker at the Harvard Business School. So I'm not sure if people were able to guess his tenure at Unilever. He's now spent 29 years at Unilever, started in 1991. It is a rarity as I started with Vishnu, him, Pariki is also a couple of organizations only, and even Dan. So goes to prove especially for the young bunch, the Gen Z who are looking to change jobs every 2 years, maybe it not necessarily helps you guys. See the big stalwarts here, spending long time. Okay, so with that, just a quick preamble before we get into the Q&A, and I have some easy questions to start with, and then some more difficult questions. But the idea of this chat was really to look at a positive spin. We all have been going through a lot. We've suffered a lot. As a civilization, we've suffered. As a business, we've suffered. As a society, we've suffered. And I think the fabric of the society is being tested right now. And what I wanted to do and what I was able to stitch together was to present a very optimistic view of how behind all these clouds, there's a silver lining. And what should we be looking at? What's the important lens under which we should look at the future? Obviously, we need to create the future. There's no playbook that's been written for this scenario. This is the first time that we've witnessed in our lifetime what is happening. So how do we create and deliver on certain set objectives to define the success and the measurement of what is going to happen, especially in the advertising industry and the media industry? There's a need for the industry to pivot, we all know it, and internalize the new normal before stepping out again. So this is no different when applied to any industry. We need to thrive, we need to overcome the short hurdles, and then we need to get going after that. So with that, my first question to the audience is, let me start with Rahul. Rahul, if that's okay with you. My first question to you is, in this world, in this stage that we are in right now, how do you define and how do you structure the discussion when it comes to the new normal? What do you tell the people? What kind of convincing that you do of how have you managed to personally stay healthy, happy, and productive? And then I think that reflects into business, that reflects into leadership, and so on and so forth. So if you can kick us off with that thought.
Yeah, thanks, Rohit, and thanks for having me on this panel. I think that's a very important question. Certainly for me, the aspect of staying healthy and staying happy is really important. Thankfully enough, in the UK, we are allowed to go outside. So I've been able to go out and exercise for about an hour every day. And that's helped me certainly on the healthy aspect. I think to your question on what are the two key messages or three key messages that one can talk about, I think I break it up into firstly resilience, because indeed, while life is great for all of us, the reality is that it is also testing, whether it is at individual level, group level, whether it's a corporation. So everything is being tested. So a high degree of resilience and strength is very important. But the second important aspect is around agility, and therefore our ability to be flexible, to be fast, and in some ways to seize the few moments that matter is really an important aspect. Both of these work in tandem to really keep what I call as a very positive mindset. And then, regardless of everything that is going on, you're able to actually be strong and then be productive as well. I think this applies across levels. Applies across geographies. It applies across industry sectors, because it's fair to say that one of the things that the crisis has shown is that nothing is predictable. And in fact, even week-long, the predictions are not really holding good related to many aspects of business, but in general as well. So my two key messages that I would like to leave as a starting point is about resilience and having a high level of agility and flexibility in the way we work.
Thank you, Rahul. Dan, if I may pose the same question to you.
Sure. I'll also start off by just thank you for setting this up. This is an interesting milestone in and of itself. So I love the concept of the panel, and thanks for having me. So look, I think at a how do I keep happy and healthy? I think one of the big challenges is I'm very much get my energy from people. And obviously that's much more challenging in today's environment where a lot are on social distancing or lockdown. So I find that I am spending a lot of my time in just evolving my communication style. So I'm spending most of my day on video with my team members, but also friend and family. The one thing that I would echo that Rahul talked a little bit about is just making sure that I'm personally carving out time to also stay balanced from a health perspective. And so I'm actually trying to go out and intentionally do either a long walk or a run or some type of activity to hopefully counter the fact that I'm going to the refrigerator a lot more than I probably should. There's one concept that I've seen it talked about in a number of different circles that I think is useful to tee up here. And this is this BCAC. What are you doing before COVID, and how is that behavior carrying over after COVID? And so at least I think a lot of the physical activity and being more intentional around health is one of the things that I'm hopeful that I take with me on the AC journey.
Great, thank you. Vishnu?
Yeah, again, thank you, Rohit, and thank you especially for a super apt subject, no playbook. It is indeed no playbook. Healthy, I would say, let me start by saying more of the right liquid and less of the wrong liquid. So that's a good start already, being, not eating outside food and just being alive on 100% home food. I mean, these are all great positive health aspects. I think one of the things that I really impressed me was the fact that, when you look at the family system for us, especially, weddings and funerals are typically define the occasions when you tend to see all of your families together. And suddenly you realize out of this stuff that it has given you an opportunity to actually see them together. And what would have been an otherwise long period that suddenly now has become like a regimen for us to actually. So there are some really good positive aspects, and that basically when you translate to the organization, that when you stay happy and healthy, you are able to communicate that as well in your regular communication that you are doing. The one thing that I would add to Rahul's point about nothing being predictable, what we're also saying is, well, there's equally nothing being predictable as what's going to go wrong. They're equally not predictable what's going to get right. So for the countries that are actually starting to come back to the normal, you know, the rate at which you are thinking that they will come back to normal, there are many pleasant, good surprises at the pace at which many of these things are coming back to normal. So that's a very, very positive thing to witness as well.
Ricky?
That's all for me.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think it's good. Very nice questions. So I think the world now is experiencing the massive energy and force us certainly to change. That number one. So I think from personal perspective, I think most of us actually staying at home, work from home, which I think the first thing that we need to think is how you make the kids happy, including your wife or husband, because most of us actually working from home. But from business perspective, what I'm to make me stay positive, basically, I keep asking myself actually what we can do actually, and second, basically learn from anyone from any world. Actually, it's just actually this is an opportunity like today's session actually where it is not possible before, but now it's very possible. People attended the webinar, more than 200 people, that kind of thing. So the sharing is actually massive. So by having that things, I think it should create some creativity into ourselves and also for the organizations. So now again, I think what I want to do is basically keep asking myself what I can do. So what can we do from actually execution perspective up to the creative, the strategic perspective, because without asking that, it is very hard. You will deal all with the problem, how many deaths every day, how many cases new comes into the world. So that's basically for me. And last but not the least, I think it is a journey. So these two shall pass. I think that's what kept me very positive. And we already, as the world, already experienced it. I think many years ago. I think 1,000 years ago already. Yep.
Thank you for that. For the audience, if you have questions, you can actually use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. We'll try and get to the questions towards the end of the session. And please do mention the instructions for the questions. Please type in your question in this section. We do also have a voting feature. You'll see a thumbs up if you like a particular question and you think you would like to go with that. Please state your name, designation, and if you can make sure that you target that question to a particular speaker, and it has to be definitely related to the webinar. Questions which are not related to the webinar on journal, financial, etc. of different organizations will not be addressed, unfortunately. And we might actually unmute you to ask your question. Also, on the screen, you have show of hands. If there is a show of hands that we are looking at, which we will call for at some point in time during the session, you can use that button to show your hands and raise your hands for just to take an account of how we are looking at. So with that, Dan, I have the next session question for you. In terms of these enduring times that we have, what do you think from a personal, going from the personal aspect of life, how do you think we can endure this and try and work on a framework to implement these learnings, which are personal, but also very important because human being is what they are personally and professionally. There's a very small gap between that. So how do we take these and how do we transfer them into organizations so that we can try and make sure that we can implement some of the learnings that we are taking? Would you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I take away at a personal level. So for me, I take away really two big learnings. One, I think that there is a reaffirmation on how fundamental our needs are to connect. It's part of our DNA. And that's become one of, I think, the most critical aspects of how we communicate, but also how we lead and also how we do business. And certainly technology, I think, has stepped up and playing a greater role as part of that. Doesn't completely solve it, but we see that just from a Facebook perspective and spikes in different activities. So messaging has gone up, things like video calls and voice calls have doubled. We also, I just put it in the context of this meeting that we're doing via Zoom, right? That's probably not something that we would have done a year ago at this time. And we're constantly thinking, and I encourage other businesses to do the same. What are the new business models? How do you need to evolve in order to take advantage of what is the new normal? And so, in the case of things like video connections, we just rolled out Messenger Rooms, which is kind of a group video tool. But that's kind of the first area. The second one that I point out is just the importance of having the protagonist mindset. And so, we're digital. We're digital leaders, most of us on this call. And so, the ability to have agility and the understanding that the impact of what's happened has probably accelerated digital transformation by many years. And you just think about what it means where we're getting our groceries delivered, where my son goes to eat, does all his stuff via e-learning now, and restaurants have moved from in-house to delivery. And so I think what we need to set up as a framework is, in this age, it's one thing that is a center of the conversation is how am I going to survive this? And that's particularly important for SMBs, but more important, I think, is now how do we start to shift towards what do we need to do to thrive?
Okay. Anybody else has any thoughts on this? Rahul?
I mean, only to add a geographical context, and I think I totally echo what Dan said. But if you look at our region per se, especially Southeast Asia, India, just the sheer ratio of SMBs to the overall universe of companies is so massive that this is really going to be a massive acceleration, in that space. That is, I mean, what would, as he said, is acceleration, but acceleration there is no definition of it. Is it something that is going to happen 4 years from now? That is going to happen in 1 year from now? But it's really the magnanimity or the enormousness of what we are seeing. That's a very, very positive development for the entire universe of SMB as a sector, which is very good from an economic perspective.
Great, thank you. So that leads me to the. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying I had a reflection to add in context of what your question, which is what is one of the personal learnings. And I think it's more a reflection which has got reinforced. I'm sure all of us on the call would echo that sentiment that this is a time to be really grateful, right? So on one hand, there is the crisis and everything that's happening around us, but also a time for gratitude because we are really fortunate in many respects. Both as leaders, but equally as just individuals to have a happy, healthy life, as was said at the beginning of the webinar. And I think the time has really, this time has reinforced, why we should all be using the privileges to help others. So I would leave that as a message of, apart from everything else, that reflection for me has been even more solid than it has ever been.
Thank you, Rahul. Okay. So Pariki, moving on from a personal perspective, because we do need to get to some part of business with managing a workforce in an environment, especially in an organization like Mayura. I am sure there are many manufacturing outputs. There's a lot of manpower that is required to do that. And there's this whole working from home environment right now. And in this, how do you make sure that you are being able to reskill people from a long-term commitment and continuity for a business perspective? And does it really mean business? And how do you define that? Would you have any thoughts that you can share in the magnitude of the scale that you guys work in?
Okay, so I think number one, work from home basically and playing with the gadget really have an implications. So I think after the COVID, people will appreciate more when they have a face-to-face meeting, not like before. So that's one of the implications. So for us, basically, maybe for some industry, work from home, like a startup, is something that they get used to it. But for us, actually, like in FMCG and manufacturing, is something really new. And we need to really realize maybe for some industry, the work from home can change to be work from anywhere. But from our cases, maybe the first stages is actually work from home is something that not easy to manage. But because of these changes, it forced us to really to do the work from our home. And it seems nothing major, nothing badly really happens, and business still can continue. That one thing. So I believe basically after this, it helps the company even better prepare to do their digital and everything, the process, that kind of things. That certainly will help the people to better prepare to the next, I think, virus maybe. So when we are better on that side. The other one, basically, if you look at it now, what I believe, the skill like the creativity, design, freelancer, I believe it will actually even grow further. And it will actually challenge the big organization from the creative industry maybe. Because now the client side thinks, oh, it is also very fast work to do the work with the freelancer. That's actually one thing that the big organization will face. So they will have the long tail, the people that actually serve the creative industry or creative business from that standpoint. Second, from our experience and many experience from brands around the world, with all the restrictions, people can still produce the TV, still can do the shooting, even they do it actually from one house to another houses independent. So then actually after the post-COVID, me as client maybe will challenge the agency. Why we need to have a big property? Why we need to have something that actually massively the investment, while we can do it actually during COVID? So this kind of thing, I think really something that we need to work together. At the same time, actually bring something that's very hard for us, but at the same time, I think bring efficiency across the industry. So that's, I think, what I believe. And the other part, the crazy ideas maybe will come out. So if you already look at a lot of startup comes now down because people talking about the profitability. But I believe after this, maybe a lot of startup that focusing on biotechnology and that kind of things. So the startup, I think, will never end. Instead, I think they will come up with something really exciting and something new to solve the human problem, especially related to the health. So that's it. And from the apps, I think certainly will be a lot of apps that actually help humans. The apps and technology that is not just technology, but really the technology that, what you call it, help human, has a value into it. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, I would just chime in for whatever it's worth. I think we're in the middle of the single largest remote working experiment in history. And I think that the changes are actually going to be pretty profound on the back end of this, on both the how work gets done as well as the work, and or where the work actually gets done. And so on the how side of it, look, it's digital infrastructure and how you communicate and collaborate. But I think one area that is perhaps not as well understood now is what it takes to lead in this type of environment. And so you're a much different leader when the majority of your workforce is frankly remote than you are when you're in an office. And so I think leaders' vlogging skills are going to start to hopefully get honed a little bit. The other thing that I would just point out is on the where work gets done. If you just look at how profound this is to history, right? You used to have to be in a super city in order to participate in kind of economic development. And I believe that one of the outcomes of this, frankly, is you're just going to see a lot more inclusion, whether or not it's rural communities or, just outside. No need to be in that super city in order to participate. And that has fascinating societal impacts.
Sure. So just building on this, Vishnu, leadership, coming to leadership, I think Dan rightly mentioned, we are now getting into this space of becoming digital leaders. And I'll come to Rahul after this. Rahul, given the fact that you have the mandate of digital transformation for Unilever, and you're obviously a leader. But Vishnu, from your perspective, when you are working with, not with technology per se, you are working with people. Your business is all about people. It's all about relationship. It's all about managing the relationship with the client, managing the relationship with the publisher. So there's no tech really involved. Yet you need to be a digital leader. Yet you need to be a leader who has sort of a profound impact on the team, on the partners, and you need to enable that as a champion, as a mentor, if you will. So how do you implement that? How do you learn with that? And then obviously it gets into products and services, but it starts with people. And in no other organization, it's more suited than an agency organization, which is all about people.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I'll take off from where Ricky spoke a lot about the creative industry per se. I think the creative industry, as you rightly pointed out, Ricky, has shown the ability to think differently and innovate completely. As you said, being able to produce content despite lockdowns, interesting content that still is engaging and still is persuasive, and being able to create transactions is really, this thing. I think those basically, Rohit, are good inspirations for our industry. So therefore, when you talk about a people-centered industry, our job as leader is fundamentally first two aspects is to be connected and to be composed. Okay, I think it's as just as digital leaders, not to be able to create a sense of, and I'm glad that you set the tone by saying it's more about the positivity and not about so much about COVID. I think as long as we are able to send that message on a regular basis to our people, that has helped a lot in keeping that spirit alive. But then when you take that into executional elements, there are three main areas that I think is very important as a leader for us. And I think one of them is challenge. So challenge almost everything. So if you're saying that as many of you alluded, that the acceleration of digital transformation has fast-tracked, and things which you would have seen at 5 years now is going to happen in 2 years from now. Challenge the organization as to whether as an organization, we are there in the same position. And this may take a lot of the hard decisions that you have never taken before in trying to relook at and reshape the organization for a I wouldn't say completely different world, but for a different world, or for a different digitally enabled world. I think that's very, very important. And I would take a leaf, with all this, with no disrespect, with all humility, the fact is, people with existing conditions and weaker immunities have been exposed more in COVID. Businesses are no different. Businesses which have ailing problems or have this thing, etc., are no different. And they have lingered on, camouflaged, and not some of the decisions. And this period from an opportunistic perspective will be able to create that opportunity to be a hard. So, decisions by committees, etc., that used to be in the past may less happen. And leadership may need to be a lot more dictatorial, in their approach, keeping in mind, as many have said again, that agility is going to be a real need for the hour. And you cannot delay things, you cannot linger things. And if I look at from our industry perspective, we are an intermediary business. Okay, we are an agency by definition, but we are principals when it comes to our suppliers, because the liability to make payments is ours. So when you look at that, if such a situation lasts for prolonged periods, it endangers the existence of the industry. Okay, from a perspective, because you can have a real problem from a pure cash ability to actually survive and to lead. So the industry will need to almost literally reinvent itself in the ways of working, and also in terms of how it creates some of these emergency capitals that are required in a very collaborative way. So I think now more than ever, I would say that, what you are doing today, a brand in Unilever, Facebook, here, an agency, a Mayora, this collaboration would need to even work harder than it has worked to try and keep the ecosystem very alive. And I would end with one last point from this thing, that our industry there's one thing that will always keep our industry alive, in my view, is creativity. Okay. And that needs to be, and it has shown that everything that will be there is still, all of the innovation that you see, whether it is experiential, whether it is product, is still born out of creativity. And I think to the extent of inspiring the people, whether digital world or in the new world, to not lose the core and keep that DNA alive is one of the key messages that we are continuously promulgating, because that's what I believe is the essence, and that's the survival mechanism in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishnu. Rahul, digital transformation for Unilever. How do you manage that? How do you work that in an environment where everything is getting digital? It was till 6 weeks back, it was an agenda that you were trying to help for Unilever. But now the entire organization is digital. Everything is digital. Your meetings are digital, everything. How do you manage that? How do you play that role? And how do you manage to get the organization the size of Unilever to fall behind it? And what does it mean for the future?
Yeah, I think just to reflect on one of the questions that you asked earlier about the digital leadership, and one of the important aspects is to have that digital mindset. And I would say that that's true even before the COVID times. And the reason for that is quite simple, because the consumer adoption of technology and digital has been accelerating even before the crisis. And what it's brought to the fore really in the last few weeks, couple of months, is that it has now gone really wide and it has gone deep. In other words, more people are now have embraced the technology, and actually they're spending much more time. In fact, their entire time almost using one digital technology or another. And from an organization perspective, therefore, this is quite clearly a no-brainer now, which is to ensure that firstly, great infrastructure is in place, because great digital infrastructure is enabling excellent productivity. So super important. We've seen lots of tools and technologies being deployed in lightning quick time. And in fact, if you follow whether it is Zoom, whether it is Microsoft, whether it is any other company, you will see that practically speaking, they're releasing one update or every 2 days, every day. So this idea of infrastructure and tools which enable a different way of working is been super important. The second big learning or reflection is that all companies and individuals have been forced somewhat by the circumstances to adopt different ways of working. And the different ways of working relate on one hand to collaboration, but equally also trying to figure out what is it that can be done without any impact on business. I think Vishnu talked about creativity earlier, and it's fair to say that it has brought the most creative minds and creative ways of working to the fore, simply because one had to find a solution. And lastly, and I think there's a good old saying which says, never waste a good crisis. And from that perspective, this is also the time for individuals and companies to really build their learning capability and spend time, practically speaking, every day in ensuring that there's a certain degree of learning that is taking place at an individual as well as at a company level. I like to think of it like this, Rohit, and this is about digital leadership at individual level as well as company. We know about the fact that in order to be healthy, we should go to the gym. So let's call it the physical gym, right? I think there is a second gym, which is the mind gym. And the mind gym has been talked about in the last few years or so. And the mind gym is really related to mindfulness, being able to be focused, being able to be strong. Great stuff. And I'd add one more gym to this now, which is the digital gym. So the question for every employee, regardless of what industry you are in, is what are you doing about your digital gym? And regardless of the nature of work, it's a very good practice to spend half an hour, 1 hour learning something about digital and technology, practically speaking, on a daily basis. So I try to think of it as simply you have the physical gym, you have the mind gym, and now we should all have the digital gym which we put into practice.
That's an interesting.
So I just wanted to add to Rahul that there is this phrase, Mohit, and you as Rahul, that you are aware that we keep saying about which is the year of the mobile. When is the year of the mobile that's going to come? Literally. And from once with the pace of the transformation that we are having, this little device down to the smallest village is going to be truly most powerful. So if at all the year of the mobile has come, it has come, and it totally resonates with what Rahul just said. The digital gym has become very important because this little device is now omnipresent and omnipotent.
Yeah. Well, so thank you for those very interesting insights. I know I have to keep a very sharp eye on the clock. This is a discussion which has been very fascinating, brilliant panel. So I do want to take time out little bit from the discussion that we have been having about future, etc., and the business. But there's something else that I wanted to discuss, and I think I'll build on what Rahul said initially. Is this is the time for being grateful? It is the time for helping, etc. So at this point in time, very short, very briefly, I want to ask you guys, each one of you, as to what is that one thing that you have done during this time, which your personal contribution of lending a hand. If you can share that with the audience, please. Can I start with Vishnu?
Sure. I think one of the things that I'm personally involved in, I realize the fact that there's one thing that has suffered more than anything, and that we absolutely cannot compromise, is the education of the future generation. Okay. So when you look at our societies, there are vast segments of population which don't have the devices, nor the infrastructure, nor the bandwidth to be able to really get the advantages of what many of us, our children, are getting from a distant learning perspective during these times of lockdown. And I've been seeing as to how do we really get to do it. And one of the things that we are working with is, in India, for example, there's tons of cable operators that are there, and cable operators, in addition to streaming all of the channels, they also have their own independent channels that they can. And the ability to then look at hyper-localized communities to create a tutor set from there and to impart education to people within that community is a brilliant idea for me, which is very meaningful and very required for what we need to help our future generation. So that's been one of the areas, Rohit.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
I'm happy to jump in. Look, let me just reinforce. I think that expectations have also gone up as part of this, and so if you look at pre-COVID, there was already a major trend for businesses and brands to, what are you doing for the betterment of society? And I think that post-COVID has actually gone on to a much higher level. And so I really think that there's, for whatever it's worth, just reinforcing the question and a point, I really think that there's a leadership opportunity for brands to demonstrate that even more explicitly. At Facebook, look, I'm personally really lucky because it's a mission-led company, and we're at the center of a lot of the communications aspect of it. But we're spending a lot of time trying to move very quick to make sure that we're doing the right partnerships, such that on the consumer level, people are getting the right kind of information. So partnerships with the WHO and local health ministries, and trying to innovate with folks like the Singapore government to make sure that you have the WhatsApp bot that I love quite a bit as a primary source of communication. But on a personal level, I'm actually spending a lot of time in the middle of this on mental health. And so what we're finding is that, whether or not it's our workers, friends, colleagues, they're at different ends of the spectrum. So we have some folks that are, working from home, and they now have kids running around, and that creates its own challenges that way, or caring for elderly folks. But we also have folks that are individuals and living by themselves, and if you're not careful, they're feeling isolated and disconnecting. And so I'm personally spending a lot of time around mental health and making sure that I'm taking ownership on me within my circle to do the check-ins and understand where people's situation and capacity are at, and recognizing that these are trying times for many.
Thank you, Dan. That's a very interesting, and this is a topic where a lot of people actually are very shy of discussing this. So thank you for doing that. Pariki?
Yes, so I think, okay, of course, because we sell a lot of product, to be honest, what I do basically, not much, but as best as I can do, I buy whatever I can produce, then whatever people that I can help, of course, that's, I think, one thing, not big though. But what I think more important than that, I think how as an organization, we as a leader also thinking how to make everything keep running. My view, basically, we cannot just stop now. It's the moment actually to find a creative ideas. So let's actually thinking about what is the next campaigns, what is the new idea, keep it rolling. So it will help actually either the agency, actually will help the animator, that kind of thing. So I think this is the time not even to stop. So you need to think and produce something so that let the economy actually going. So including example, whatever promotion that you can do to help the people in your channel, respective channel. If modern trade mini market is growing, then how you help that mini market to grow further? So that's, I think, though it's not directly impact, but I think this is keep the economy rolling. That's what I want really to emphasize. The other part, basically, from the learning perspective, so many people actually want to offer their business. So, if example, the demand of OTT, over the top, or the TV on demand is increasing in Indonesia. So what we do, basically, we just actually invite the agency and how actually we can participate in the emerging technology during this period. So what I mean, so that's the agency also get the value, us also get the knowledge, and if it is good, so we can do the collaborations. So that, I think, the more important is actually keep the economy rolling as best as we can.
Thank you. Rahul?
Yeah, I think, sorry, do you want me to answer that, Rohit?
Yes, please.
From a company perspective, sustainability, societies is absolutely at the core of, the way we operate, and therefore that's a great privilege. We have amazing brands and strong belief that purposeful brands have a place. And in fact, we believe that brands with purpose grow, and we have an amazing array of brands. All of them lend themselves to a purpose in a very big way, or contributing to society and the planet. I think at a personal level, certainly one of the things that I've been doing for several years actually now, but again, far more pronounced in these times, is to help people who are younger in the workforce. And very specifically, there's a migrant leaders initiative. I mentor some migrant leaders, and a majority of us on the call will perhaps associate migrant leaders with what videos we see or where we read, but the lives are very, very different. The challenges are extremely different. Majority of them come from underprivileged backgrounds. And that is both a humbling experience, but equally enables a different sense of contribution. And I like doing that because these are people who are trying to fight against the odds, and really super talented. And that's a way of bringing inclusion into society by helping people who are different. And at the end of the day, just the aspect of mentoring and helping younger people is a great great thought. Certainly, I enjoy doing that. I think there's a question. In fact, I don't know if you're going to take questions from the audience, but I was just scrolling through the feed, and there are quite a few interesting questions. But one of them I'd like to touch upon is the idea of what the digital transformation and what's happening will do to rural markets and rural economies. And that's I think I talked about earlier that what's happened is that because of the crisis, penetration of digital is accelerated a lot. And that includes different sections of societies, including whether it is rural India or other different parts of the world. And what that means is, I think is going to have a huge impact on connectivity. In the context of India, the alliance and partnership between Facebook and Jio, for example, could be a game changer, because it will just enable getting more and more people onto the net, more and more people onto devices, and getting used to technology. So some of the implications are going to be very, very quick. And what might have otherwise taken years to penetrate in terms of infrastructure, adoption of tools, change in behavior. Typically, they say the change in behavior cycle is quite long and it takes a few years. We're going to see that happen in weeks and months. And therefore, I think for sure, all societies, rural and urban, will benefit from that change, because as we know, technology really benefits everybody in a very big way. So I think from the way I'm seeing it is that all these changes really are from a technology and business standpoint, many of them augur well for the future.
Okay. So I'm very conscious of the time. We have little time, and I do have something lined up for the audience specifically. So when I was doing this discussion with the panel, I actually had asked the panel the one marketing campaign that they have seen which really moved them in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So that was something that I had asked each one of them to share. So they did share their aspect of what that marketing campaign was. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly share with
I think we've the voice is
Panelists to talk about what that campaign was, and very briefly, not in extent, but and then we'll move on to the Q&A. So I'm going to share the first campaign that I liked, maybe um, that I personally liked, and I thought was very interesting. So I'm going to share that with you to begin with, and then we can go into Rahul's first campaign. I'll share in that order. So this is the campaign. So that was the campaign on which I liked, which Rahul was doing himself. And this is the campaign that Rahul has sent. So that was Rahul's campaign that he had shared, which is the Dove campaign. And the first one, if you guys did not notice, it was Rahul who was the model in the Lifebuoy campaign. Rahul, you want to touch upon the Dove campaign?
That's, you're putting me in a spot over there. That was meant for internal company circulation, but nevertheless, it's about hand washing and how hand washing keeps us safe, and a great campaign that Lifebuoy run, and we did some video internally. But anyways, thanks for noticing that one. I have to
Rahul,
be careful on what I share with you.
TikTok is enabling everybody to become a model right now. So never lose an opportunity.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Okay, so Dove campaign was pretty self-explanatory. I don't think so. It really requires. But do you want to spend 30 seconds talking about it?
Yeah, I think the campaign is self-explanatory. You're absolutely right. It acknowledges those people at the front line, helping us stay safe, helping our families stay safe. But there was another dimension to this, which I thought is interesting, and why I like it is because it's been done in a very different way, you know, through obviously between the UK, the Canada, and the US, pretty much in hours from idea to a campaign turnaround, including putting it on mainline media, kind of stuff that we, you know, in conventional times only dream of doing, so this is a great example of cross-country, across teams collaboration, and in what I would call, certainly from most, for the purpose of big brands and big campaigns, in lightning quick time. You know, practically speaking, you know, over the weekend, things got finalized, and then it was on air. I think the key learning for me is that this is going to set a new norm of turnaround time, set a new norm for creativity. Vishnu mentioned about creativity earlier in the advertising industry. By the way, I mean, I picked up Dove campaign because it's a great brand, but equally, I have to say there have been many other great campaigns which different brands have done across the globe, and all of them, you know, have some dimensions around creativity, which is unusual, some dimensions around society, and you know how they wish to. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Ricky. So Ricky shared his campaign. This was a campaign which is a Myra campaign. So just a quick.
Sebagai ibu, aku ingin terus menjaga mimpi dan prestasinya, walau saat ini harus di rumah saja. Dan menjaga terus kebutuhan nutrisinya dengan sarapan energen setiap hari. Kini dengan ekstra vitamin C untuk bantu jaga daya tahan tubuh. Saat di rumah saja, aku pastikan.
So, Ricky, would you like to share your thoughts as to why you selected this and what was really interesting? I really liked what you said. It was not you creative.
Okay, so number one, as a brand, we really appreciate mother. So especially in this tough time, we want the mother to be what you call it, feel positive. So most of the case, actually, when we see global brands, when they talk about donation, care, we just feel that how to make it really also both tonality positive, but yet still link strongly to the brands. So this energen basically asking the mom and the family, despite that you cannot go out or cannot go to school, you need to keep pursuing your dream, your achievement, and that kind of things. But yet, as a mother, they know the best that they need to take care of the family by giving the nutrition. So that's why I really quite like this ad also. On top of that, I think from this creative, we don't do any shooting. So we just use from existing footage that we have and we combine it with stock shot that we have. So
yeah, going to the point that Vishnu was talking creativity and Rahul alluded to. So quickly moving on to Dan's campaign. Dan, this is your campaign you want to talk about. There's no video here, so all yours.
There you go. Yeah, look, I back to the comment that was made around, I think Rahul made it around leading with purpose. There are so many awesome campaigns that are coming out right now. So, you know, it was a difficult challenge, Rohit, to pick one, but I really love the Grab Care, both the launch of the service as well as that campaign that ran. And I love it because number one, it was timely. You know, if you think about it, the news, for those that aren't familiar with it, there was a lot of news where taxis were reluctant to pick up frontline healthcare workers because they were worried about the infection. Grab went ahead and actually launched a specific service for that and followed it up with a campaign. And so I thought it was timely. I thought it was relevant. It solved a real social issue. And I think it made one of the things I really loved is it made a hero out of and celebrated the frontline workers as opposed to Grab, but yet Grab is one of the folks that is uniquely, I think, positioned to help in this way. So I love it all the way around.
Yeah. Seems to be a common thread, honoring and respecting the frontline workers who are really doing a great job, and I think we all admire that. So thank you for picking that out. And last but not the least, Vishnu's campaign. It's a long video, so we'll just share the first part, and then I'll move on to the end just to give you an idea what this video is, and then Vishnu could talk about it.
अरे सुनो, अरे सुन रही हो? वो मेरा काला चश्मा कहाँ है? डार्क ग्लासेस मिल नहीं रहा है. सुन रही हो? ओ, इस घर में मेरी कोई सुनता ही नहीं है. शहंशाह बुलाते रहेंगे और मैडम बादशाह सुनती रहेंगी. मैं ही ढूंढता हूँ. वो कहाँ गया इनका काला चश्मा? सुन रही हो? मैं उठा नहीं हूँ, तूने मुझे उठाया, तो तू जा.
बस करा आता. चला मदत करा त्यांना. दोघं मिळून शोधा त्यांचा चष्मा.
So basically, I'll stop there and just.
देश का फिल्म उद्योग एक है. हम सब एक परिवार है. लेकिन हमारे पीछे एक और बहुत बड़ा परिवार है जो हमारे लिए काम करता है. वो है हमारे वर्कर्स और डेली वेज अर्नर्स, जो इस लॉकडाउन की वजह से संकट में. हम सब ने मिलकर स्पॉन्सर्स और टीवी चैनल के सहयोग से धनराशि इकट्ठा की, और इस संकट की घड़ी में ये जो धनराशि है.
I think that gives a good context. Vishnu, you want to just wrap it up for us?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pick up a particular brand ad per se, because I mean, I was really, I think this particular ad, which came at the very early part of the whole, you know, ingenuity around creativity, about demonstrating the fact that what you can do without actually having to go and shoot outside. This actually inspired the creative industry by itself as a stepping stone into what can be done. And this was a beautiful campaign. And every single person within that was shot in their own home. Everybody shot themselves. There was not a single. And when you see it, you can't figure it out. Huh? It's been shot so beautifully and edited so well that I urge you to watch this film at whenever you can watch. It's really one of the most captivating films that has been done. Long film, 4 minutes, in tribute of all the workers and the daily wage earners in the film industry, utilizing all the film stars, conceived by a creative agency, and just given scripts, individual scripts to multiple stars, shoot on their phones, edited, done, and it was just very beautiful.
So time for a few questions, guys. I know we are scheduled to end in a couple of minutes, so just wanted to take few questions. Dan, this is specifically for you. What's that one big idea that he would want to invest in, which possibly no one has brought to him yet? I wonder why would he mention that idea if nobody's got that? But that's from Manav Sethi, the CMO of Eros International. Dan.
Yeah, if I had that idea, I would probably chase after it. But look, I think if I had to say what is going to be the single biggest transformational area to come out of the impact of COVID, I think it's going to be around how you connect, communicate, and the structure of work. And so while it's difficult to pitch, say, hey, here's the one idea, I think those areas are where the opportunity is going to be, I think, the biggest. It was said a little bit earlier, but I would reinforce it. Out of every crisis comes a lot of opportunity, and this one's no exception. We're going to get through it, and when we do, I think those are the areas that you're going to see most transformed.
There's another question, and I think this is more of a theme about how do big brands like Unilever, Mayora, Facebook, etc. This is being asked by a few of them, and I'll just wrap it up in as a thematic question. How do you actually help on extending support to the SME segment with your partners, with small partners, small organizations that you guys work with? I do believe that every company has a structure, a plan to actually work with them. But is there any key highlight or specific point that any one of you would like to address? I know Facebook has launched a $100 million investment fund for helping small organizations. But anything other than that you guys are looking at? Any one of the big organizations?
Yeah, let me just chime in and start. You're right. We did just launch the $100 million grant fund, which we're rolling out across the world. But look, it's the lifeblood of any economy typically ends up as SMBs or SMEs. And if you look at the statistics are that somewhere between 30 to 50% of SMEs won't be able to survive a prolonged shutdown of a few months. And so that's one of the areas, frankly, where we think we can lead with purpose or certainly contribute to, but it's also something that we're focused on, not just on the grant side, but how we can enable these businesses to transform their models and step on the accelerator for digital transformation.
Yeah, I think similar for us, partnerships play a very important role. And when we think of partnerships, it's not only SMEs or medium scale companies, large companies across the entire spectrum. The key issue that we're addressing is how do we make sure that we can help everybody keep the lights on in different ways. And certainly all our suppliers, our different service contractors, all of them play a very important role, and we're trying our best to support them through the entire spectrum, not just small scale companies, but even some of the other bigger partners that we have.
Sure. There's another question which
from
I
my
think
side,
Rahul,
Rohit, I think it's much more around
to answer
you started
directly, I think we lost Vishnu.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah. Yes. Can hear you now.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay, now I was just basically adding on to what
Yes, we can hear you now.
And Rahul had said. I was saying that, we said that we started the mentoring initiative, because I think the one way that we can help the SME industry is by, adopting the role of mentor and basically mentoring a lot of the diversity of, small, medium on the agency side of the business or on the development side of the business who can help in digital transforming the small companies, because it's impossible to absorb that whole scale ourselves. So if we can help us in providing that guidance and mentoring to many of these, that would be a good initiative from us. That's okay. What we would do.
Rahul, there was a question from Edward Sharp, which I think you volunteered to answer. The question is, how do we keep team motivated during the challenging times when they're working from home?
Yeah, actually that question, that question attracted my attention because we spoke about sports. That's something that I sorely miss in these times, right? So there is really not enough sports going on whether it's the telly or otherwise. And I'm hoping that, as we know, the Premier League is going to kick off hopefully in a few weeks' time. The Bundesliga kicks off tomorrow, so looking forward to some football over the weekend. But as a general theme, I think for Edward as well as for all of us who like sports, this is an age-old tradition, goes back thousands and thousands of years. So sports is not going anywhere. Whether it's in camera or otherwise, I think we're going to see that springing back, and hopefully we'll all get to enjoy it during this time. So my key message to Edward and the team would be really that this is going to come back very soon, and stay put because sports is very, very exciting industry.
Okay, so as a parting comment, in one word, how would you shape the future? Ricky.
For me, one word is anticipate. So.
Okay.
So yeah, do I need to explain?
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, what I mean basically when you can anticipate.
No, thank you. I think Dan, if I could jump in.
Look, I'm looking at it just in the theme of businesses are now moving from surviving to thriving. So my one word is optimism.
Okay, optimism. Rahul?
I have one word. I don't know whether it qualifies as one word, but it's about video.
It is a one word, video. Yeah, that's the future. And Vishnu?
Well, I had the word optimism as well, but I'll change that now and I would say together. And my word is together.
Together. Great. Thank you so much for that. There are some other questions, and if they are directed to specific speakers, we will try and get them addressed. There are a few other questions that are there on the screen, but we are running out of time on that. With that, I would actually like to thank all our panelists, all our speakers for their valuable time, to the audience once again. And just to summarize, I think the key theme that we are building, what we've learned today is we need to be very agile. The themes that I heard all the panelists talking about, we need to be nimble, agile, and grateful as we go through this. But there is a very strong sentiment of how do we build leadership? As Rahul said, every crisis, you need to exploit it. And how do we build leadership around that? How do we create agility around that and to come out with new collaborative solutions, which Vishnu really stressed upon, collaboration of all the parts of the ecosystem coming together. So I think there is a general consensus, there's a general willingness across all the participants, all the parts of the ecosystem, that they are coming together. There's a huge learning. The society of the fabric, as I initially said, is being tested, but it's also the fabric of the organizations and the business that is being tested with new creativity, with new innovative solutions. People are looking at building it. And to summarize, as the panel rightly said, we need to anticipate what's happening, make sure that we work together with an optimistic view that the future is only going to be bright. We will overcome this hurdle and we'll go across to the other side. Thank you once again to the panel. Really appreciate you taking the time. I hope you had as much fun as I had, and thank you to the audience.
Thanks, Rohit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
With that, we come to the end of our first virtual panel. There is no playbook for this. We hope you really enjoyed as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. We look forward to your engagement on the next discussion that we have scheduled next Friday with a panel which we are already building. We have Bessie Lee, CEO founder within Link China, Ashutosh Srivastava, CEO Group M, and Antoine, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Gojek. We look forward to seeing you next Friday. Till then, have a safe weekend, enjoy your weekend, and good evening. Thank you.